Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most wild corporate growth stories in history, the massive rise of Apple, but strictly through the lens of their product timeline. No dry corporate jargon, no boring financial charts. We're just looking at the actual things they put into our hands, onto our desks, and eventually right onto our wrists and into our ears. When you map out exactly what Apple launched and when, this brilliant, almost inescapable strategy just totally reveals itself. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. The year is 1976. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak are hanging out in a garage, and they launch exactly one product, the Apple I. It's basically a single circuit board. That's it. Just one solitary product aimed at this tiny, super niche audience of hobbyists. So how on earth did a company that started with one single, highly technical motherboard build an inescapable empire that now dictates global culture and technology? To really get that, we need to break their history down into distinct eras and watch how the literal pace of their innovation shifts over time.
Starting us off, we have Era 1, the early computer era.
Now, this foundational period, it was methodical and honestly pretty slow. The company was really just figuring out what a personal computer was even supposed to do. Just look at the massive gaps in this early timeline. In '76, we get the Apple I. The very next year, 1977, brings the Apple II, which was a huge leap into the home market. But then, look at those gaps. It takes until 1984 to get the Macintosh 128K. Then we jump all the way to 1991 for the PowerBook and leap again to 1998 for that iconic, colorful iMac G3. For over 2 decades, Apple's focus stayed exclusively on desktop and early portable computing. They were basically taking these huge, multi-year swings at defining the computer. But contrast that slow, laser-focused early era with this number right here, 17. Think back to that single circuit board in 1976. Today, Apple manages 17 distinct major product families simultaneously. I mean, we're talking MacBooks, iMacs, iPads, iPhones, watches, AirPods, HomePods. The list goes on. This transformation from a one-product startup to a 17-headed hardware hydra absolutely did not happen overnight. But man, when the shift finally happened, it happened with explosive speed.
Which brings us to Era 2, the mobile revolution begins. Moving into the 2000s, you can practically feel the energy shift, right? The slow, deliberate pacing of the 80s and 90s gets completely thrown out the window. Suddenly, the timeline just explodes. In 2001, they dropped the iPod. In 2007, the first-generation iPhone. 2008 brings the MacBook Air, and by 2010, we've got the iPad. Look at the sheer density of these releases compared to that first era. In less than a decade, Apple completely transitioned from a company that just sat on your desk to a company that lived in your pocket, in your bag, and in your hands all day long.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real secret sauce of Apple's hypergrowth. Because you know what? It wasn't just about the hardware. Notice how perfectly paired these releases are. On one side, you have the hardware, the 2001 iPod and the 2007 iPhone. But on the other side, the sticky digital services that made them totally indispensable. The iTunes Store in 2003 and the App Store in 2008. The hardware got you in the door, sure, but the services locked you in. You weren't going to buy a competitor's MP3 player because, well, all your music was stuck on iTunes. You wouldn't switch phones because your favorite apps were on the App Store. This ecosystem synergy was the foundational trap that built their empire. Moving on to Era 3, building the hardware ecosystem in the 2010s. So now that basically everyone has an iPhone in their pocket, Apple starts asking, what else can we connect to this phone? They started expanding their territory from our pockets to our wrists to our ears and right into our homes. Notice the narrative unfolding here. In 2011, they launched iCloud and Siri, this sort of invisible connective tissue. Then the physical accessories arrived to tether you completely. 2015 gives us the Apple Watch, 2016 the AirPods, 2017 the HomePod. Every single one of these products is designed to work so flawlessly with the others that leaving the Apple ecosystem becomes completely agonizing. You aren't just giving up a phone anymore, you're giving up your watch, your headphones, your entire smart home setup. They literally built an invisible web around the iPhone. And this ecosystem quickly snowballed into an almost dizzying array of choices. Looking at this timeline from 2012 to 2014, we went from one perfect iPhone to an absolute cascade of variations. We get the iPhone 5, an iPad mini, then the 5S, and the colorful plastic 5C, then the iPhone 6, and suddenly, boom, a massive iPhone 6 Plus.
Honestly, it was right around this time you almost needed a spreadsheet just to figure out which size and color of Apple glass you were supposed to buy. But the sheer volume of product variations meant they were capturing absolutely every single price point and consumer preference on the market.
Which leads us nicely into Era 4, the shift to services.
Because, let's face it, hardware has limits. You can only sell someone a new slab of glass so many times before they're just like, you know what, my old one works fine. Apple realizes that to maintain this incredible astronomical growth, they can't just sell you a device every 3 years. They need to sell you something every single month. And get ready because the sheer blitz of this rollout is breathtaking. Look at this list. In just a few short years, we get Apple Pay in 2014, Apple Music and Apple News in 2015, and then 2019 hits, and it's just an avalanche. Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, Apple Card, followed right up by Apple Fitness Plus in 2020. I mean, boom, boom, boom. This wasn't just a pivot. This was an all-out assault designed to capture recurrent user engagement. They wanted a piece of how you pay, how you listen, how you read, watch, play, and even how you sweat.
So the crucial point is how perfectly these two sides of the business talk to each other. Notice the perfect alignment here. You buy an Apple Watch, and it seamlessly feeds you right into an Apple Fitness Plus monthly subscription. You buy an iPhone, and the Wallet app practically begs you to sign up for an Apple Card. You buy an Apple TV 4K box, and, well, it basically exists to serve you an Apple TV Plus subscription. The new hardware acts as this beautiful brushed aluminum funnel perfectly designed to guide you into these highly profitable monthly subscription traps.
All right, stepping into the modern day, we have Era 5, the silicone and spatial era.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what it represents. Covering roughly 2020 to 2023, Apple has the hardware ecosystem locked down. They have the services ecosystem locked down. So what's actually left to conquer? The answer is the underlying architecture itself, and entirely new dimensions of computing. The data here shows an avalanche of deeply unified, incredibly ambitious technologies. In 2020, they totally shocked the industry by ditching Intel and launching the M1 Max, putting their own in-house silicon into their computers. By 2022, they're flexing that new power with a massively capable Mac Studio. We also get the AirTag in 2021, which basically turns the entire world of Apple devices into a giant lost and found network. And then, 2023, the Vision Pro announcement, the massive leap into spatial computing. This era is all about taking total top-to-bottom control of their tech stack and trying to invent the literal future of how we interact with digital space. Finally, let's look ahead to Era 6, peering into the future, taking us from 2024 to 2026. We've traced this amazing story from 1976 all the way to today, but Apple's engine literally never stops. Over these next few years, the roadmap reveals this relentless, almost punishing cycle of hardware refreshes mixed with some really tantalizing new categories. In 2024, we see the incredibly powerful iPad Pro M4 and the iPhone 16 series. For 2025, the pipeline shows the iPhone 17, an all-new slim iPhone Air, and a crucial refresh for the Vision Pro. And looking out to 2026, we are expecting an AirTag 2 and, fascinatingly, a rumored MacBook Neo. This clearly shows a company that is simultaneously refining its reliable cash cows while constantly seeding the ground for the next major computing revolution. Which leaves us with this final burning question: where does Apple grow from here? We've seen them evolve from a single motherboard in a garage in 1976 to a 17-product ecosystem that encompasses our phones, our computers, our home entertainment, our fitness, and even our finances. They have successfully trapped us, quite willingly, I might add, in their most beautifully designed walled garden in history. But once you dominate the desk, the pocket, the wrist, and the living room, what frontier is actually left to conquer? I'll let you think on that. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.